morning. My name is Carmen Martínez, a PhD student from the Faculty of Law in the University of Valladolid and participant in the Innovating in Teaching project called Law for Non-Jurists. And in the framework of this project, we aim to bring closer the students of any branch. ¿Podemos empezar otra vez? Okay. Vale. Vale. So I start again, sorry. Good morning, my name is Carmen Martínez, PhD student in the Faculty of Law in the University of Valladolid and participant in the Innovation in Teaching project called Law for Non-Jurists. In the framework of this project, we aim to bring closer to the students of any branch of knowledge to law in an innovative way. Today, we have 4 students from different countries, continents, and study programs that are going to share their knowledge about the compliance with core labor standards in their own country so that the rest of the students can learn about this law matter in an innovative way and close way. So, first of all, can you please introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Maria Eduarda. I am 21 years old and I am from Brazil. Oh, and I also study law.
Hello everyone, my name is Kelvin Omondi. I'm from Kenya. I'm doing a master's in project management. I study in Zambia currently, but for the moment I'm in Spain. I'm 28 years old.
Hello everyone, Faisal. I'm from Pakistan. I'm 30 years old and I'm doing my master's in business administration. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Angela, I come from Montenegro, and I'm a bachelor student currently doing a degree in economics, finance, and business.
Thank you to you all, and well, in this interview, my first question for all of you, we are going to intervene one by one, okay, is what would you personally consider a core labor right? Maria?
Maximum hours.
Maximum hours, for example. What
Yes.
other rights do you think all the workers in the world deserve?
Payment. And also basic conditions of work.
Okay, Kelvin?
For me, I think the basic right for workers is primarily a safe and healthy working environment, and I think a fair pay. Maybe not the highest, but a fair pay considering the cost of living, and possibly the rights to labor itself, people knowing that they can get the job when and as they need it. Yeah.
Thank you. Fisa?
Okay, so as other participants mentioned, I think I'll be saying the same, and then based on that, fair pay, working conditions, I think the right or opportunities for their growth, also it's very important, I think, because over the time, if they don't get it, then the motivation level goes down, and then the production or the innovation doesn't come up. And then ergonomics, as other participants mentioned, it's very important. So fair pay, ergonomics, and the chances to grow within the company, the training and development.
So as my colleagues previously listed, everything's really important. I would only add equality, basic equality when it comes to, opportunities, when it comes to getting the job. So safety is, really important as well. So there's not much to add on that, but yeah.
Thank you, Angela.
You're welcome.
So the second question in this regard is, do you know what is the International Labour Organization? Can you just point it out?
No, I don't know.
Kelvin?
Yes, I do know International Labour Organization is an international organization in the context of international law that governs or gives guidance on how labor should be distributed, that in the sense of the rights of employees and the rights to I'm forgetting the word, to create
A healthy environment?
yes,
maybe?
a healthy environment. So I think from that context I understand international labor law to that level. Yeah.
Anything else to point out about the International Labour
Pretty much
Organization?
the same, which
Yes.
Kelvin has covered.
Okay, So now, yes, the International Labour Organization is an international organization which is composed not only by governments but also for workers and employees, and it tends to create labor norms and control the compliance with labor standards. But according to the International Labour Organization, only one of the labor rights that you have mentioned, in this case, Angela, non-discrimination, is considered a core labor right. The international organization in this regard sets only 4 core labor standards, that is, fundamental labor standards that all the workers around the world should have or should be able to enjoy, and they are freedom of association and the effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, that is the possibility to join labor unions, the elimination of all forms of forced labor or compulsory labor, and the effective abolition of child labor, and finally, the elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation, that is the one that Angela mentioned. So taking into account that these are the 4 core labor standards, abolition of forced labor, child labor, the possibility to join labor unions, and finally, non-discrimination, this last question, let's say, is what do you think, or what is your knowledge about the stage of compliance of these core labor rights in your own country? What is happening with forced labor, child labor in Brazil?
I think in regards to forced labor, we still have, unfortunately, a few cases that are very known, especially in the interior and in farms. We have a lot of agriculture, so that's pretty common to have basically enslaved people still to this day, and very sad. But we don't hear a lot about child labor. I think that's mostly not happening. And yeah, I guess that's it. Basically, forced labor, it's still also in the Amazon, where it's a forest, and we have a lot of workers who with wood and the trees and everything. That's pretty common to have enslaved people over there. So yeah.
Kelvin, what is happening in Kenya?
I think in terms of discrimination, given the demography in Kenya, it's not a really big issue. I would point out maybe the only place where discrimination can be, you can say that you can witness discrimination is in terms of gender. We're still working on it. There are laws that are affirmative action laws and such things that are supposed to enhance to reduce the likelihood of someone suffering discrimination based on gender. The other discrimination might be probably because we are a country with different ethnicities across, so maybe you can witness a level of discrimination in terms of your ethnic background, but it's not really so much that it stands out, because in a way, over the years, the government has been trying to change that. In child labor, I would say personally I've not witnessed any child labor, and given that it's an African context, I wouldn't say that it doesn't exist. That one would be living in a small bubble, which I don't know whether I can say it's true, but from my own experiences so far, I wouldn't say I've seen child labor. It used to be there. But in agriculture, like Maria said, we have a lot of agriculture. We are practically an agricultural-based economy. The small-scale farmers, they do it. They have their children, but as family. So in that case, I don't know in what context you can consider it child labor. It's very hard for you to classify it somewhere. The other point you raised was the rights to join labor unions. I think this is very hard for me to place it in a particular place, because especially for smaller and family-based organizations, employees do not have I don't know whether it's lack of the right or they don't know about it. But for larger organizations where the government can make interventions, where people have a right to go to court, most of them, the employees have a right to join labor unions, which is a good thing. And again, in my country, we are very litigious. So if there is a situation where you have to go to court, the justice system works not really perfectly every time, but it's fair enough. So I think mostly that is what I can say about my country. Yeah.
Thank you, Kelvin. Pakistan? What is happening about child labor in Pakistan?
All right. So child labor, yes, they do exist child labor due to the economic situation over the past few years. However, because Pakistan is, as other colleagues mentioned, likewise, we are also an agriculture-based economy. However, we also are into so much manufacturing. Basically, Pakistan is the only football producer for the World Cup, or actually the biggest football producer over the past 8 years. We are the one export the football for the FIFA World Cup and all. So there used to be child labor in those factories, for example, football making and other leather products. But due to the fact there was some pressure from international organizations and also the companies, for example, Adidas and other companies, local production companies or the factories were working, there was some pressure from there. So that is kind of eliminated. However, there still do exist the child labor in some smaller businesses, but slowly it's because of the NGOs work and other international organizations pressure, it's kind of reducing. However, we need to mention that still the Factories Act 1934, it's basically into force and it's being followed. And in that act, there was a clause that the child from 14 to 18 years old is allowed to work, but he has to go through a surgeon. Surgeon has to do the examination, physical examination, and the parents and the guardians need to do the consent work and all, and then he's allowed to work. So that's how I think the law comes into effect for the child, which is 14 years to 18 years. But the current laws which we have in two different provinces and the federal law, the minimum age is 18 years. The second part about the association with the unions and all, they do exist unions, but mostly what I know is within the government organizations or the government sector, there are the labor unions, but in the private sector, there are very few companies that do have the union. However, we have seen over the past few years that labor unions sometimes take the benefit and try to basically take the benefit of being a labor union and being a power, the human resource, and trying to basically exploit this and to negotiate with the companies or the organization, which I think on some situations it's very unfair what they ask for, because they are in power, so they try to do that. But that's pretty much it, I think, about the unions and the child labor.
Thank you.
So in Montenegro, I would say that forced labor is really non-existent. As for child labor, I would say also that forced child labor is non-existent, but there are still some teenagers and kids willing to work. They really want the opportunities, and let's say like a summer job and so on. So you can consider that they can be younger than the age limit really says, but I wouldn't say it's a problem per se. As for the unions, I would say not a lot of people actually have enough knowledge about their rights when it comes to that. So I would like to point out that maybe people should be more aware of what they can and cannot do, should or shouldn't do. And as for discrimination, well, that's the one still existing. I wouldn't say a large-scale moment is happening, but still, when it comes to like age and gender and just general discrimination, it's still there. And what's really prevalent in my country too are political parties. So discrimination when it comes to that, depending on which political party you're in, your chances are going to either be very limited, non-existent, or skyrocketing. So it depends on, situation really. But more or less, that is it in general.
Okay, thank you, Angela.
You're welcome.
So just to finish, because this is the interview, okay, and this is a project in innovating in teaching, so I would like to teach a little bit, because the International Labour Organization has a committee in charge of seeking reports from every country to see what is the stage of compliance of these 4 core labor standards, okay? And in the last report, I must say that Montenegro didn't send the report, so we do not have information about Montenegro. But for example, regarding Kenya, in this report they pointed out that there are certain provisions of the penal code and the public order law under which prison sentences can be imposed as punishment for participating in certain meetings and assemblies, or for publishing, distributing, or importing certain types of posts. Under Rule 86 of the Penitentiary Regulations, this sentence carry out compulsory labor. And there are more than 28,692 children involved in child labor in the Busia district, most of whom are involved in agricultural work, domestic work, street vending, or drug dealing. From the survey report in Kitui district, it appears that almost 70% of children over 5-year-old of age work, most of whom are between the ages of 10 and 14-year-old. Regarding Pakistan, in this report, despite the fact that the law prohibits forced labor, this practice persists in the brick kilns due to the lack of effective enforcement. The Child Employment Prohibition Act and the Punjab Restraint of Employment of Children Ordinance contain provisions specifying a minimum age of 14-15 years for admission to employment of work, respectively. But the enforcement of child labor laws was poor due to the lack of inspectors assigned to child labor issues, lack of training and resources, and corruption, and that penalties are generally too light to be deterrent. In Pakistan, 13.4% of children between the ages of 5 and 17-year-old are engaged in child labor, and 10% of these are engaged in hazardous work. What is more, the net enrollment rate in primary education was 67%, 61% of women and 73% of men, and the secondary level is just 38.53%. In this case, 36.38% of men, and percent of women are 40%, and women are 40%. And finally, regarding Brazil, the committee in the International Labour Organization is very concerned about the situation in fazendas, in the agricultural work, because yes, there are, it is estimated more than 2 million people working, not as slaves, but in situations similar to slaves. So yes, this is another point pointed out in this report. And okay, this the interview as such is finished, so I would like to know if you have learned in a different way what are core labor standards, what is the stage of compliance, and so on. So it's been something new for you?
Yeah, the situation in Brazil is actually worse than I thought, but okay, that's something new. And also about the core values of work, I didn't know about that, and that's very interesting. And yeah.
Same to her. I didn't know about the statistics behind the labor statistics in my country. That's a good lesson. And then I knew about International Labour Organization, but I really had not read about the core values of the International Labour Organization. So that's another lesson I've learned. And again, I've learned from different countries through everyone speaking. So it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was good to know, basically, first of all, about my country, because as we see in the data in the report, the level of enrollment into school or the education for the children is less, which means because of the economic situation of the parents, for example, they are forced to send their children into labor work, which I mentioned previously. However, I just need to mention here that now currently there are some of the NGOs, for example, I must say, Ahuvat Foundation and some of the others are working with the government to basically start investing into schools, or like the existing schools which were closed due to some financial problems and all. And actually the enrollment percentage is increasing. I think the next report would be much better. Apart from this, it's good to know, basically, having different people from different continents to know their perspective and how the labor laws and the ILO works and all. And it's good to know about the core rights of the ILO, because we were mentioning about the pay and other things, but it's slightly different from what we were saying. And yeah, it's good to be part of this session. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
In my case, it was really informative because I really got to know what is the International Labor Organization, and not only that, what they stand for, what is their mission. And it was really interesting to see that nowadays, even in 21st century, even these core 4 rights are not yet fully, respected in a manner that they definitely should be in. And I'm really sad that there's no statistics from Montenegro. I know that there's some problem with the unemployment rates, which is really concerning, especially when it comes to younger people. Doesn't matter, like both men and women. It is concerning, so it is not too good, but I was really hoping to, see some statistics, but it is what it is. But it was really informative, and I'm really glad that I was able to be a part of this session.
Okay, finally, I just want to thank you, the 4 of you, to come here to share your knowledge, and I'm very glad to see that you have at least learned something new. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.